Okay, get ready because today we are going deep into a topic that will definitely make you think. Organic cyborgs. Like, are they actually real?
Yeah.
And are they living among us right now?
Yeah, so we're going to explore what this woman, Roberta, who claims to use psychic techniques to learn about these organic cyborgs, says about them. We found this interview with her on YouTube, and let me tell you, it is a wild ride.
Oh, wow. So, should we jump right in?
Yeah, let's do it.
So this Roberta, she calls these beings O-CYBORGS.
Right.
And she describes them as having a human skeleton, but their nervous system, get this, it's a mix of organic and metallic parts, crystals, and some really advanced programming.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that she says that they can be made to look just like a normal human with like a synthetic skin.
What?
Yeah, and she even suggests that they can be created as clones or even copies of like people who already exist.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold on a sec. Clones, that's a whole other thing. Like, how does she actually say how these O-CYBORGs are made?
So she claims that it's this combination of human DNA, cutting-edge technology, some of which she says that governments are keeping secret, and even elements from space.
Elements from space. Okay, this is getting a little out there. I mean, where are these labs? It can't be just any regular lab, right?
Yeah, no. According to Roberta, these O-CYBORGs are being created in secret labs, both on Earth and in space. She even mentions places like Antarctica and, get this, underground caves. She also claims to channel information from a scientist named Rebecca who supposedly works on this whole O-CYBORG project.
Hold on. Channel information. For those of us who don't know, what does that even mean?
Okay, so channeling is when someone says that they can connect with or get information from a spirit or some other entity. It's often connected with like psychic or spiritual stuff. So, whether you believe in that is up to you, but it's definitely part of what Roberta's saying.
Okay, yeah, that definitely adds another layer to this whole story. So what does Rebecca say about how these O-CYBORGs are put together?
So Rebecca describes a process that mixes human DNA with some super advanced tech. She mentions cloning, changing genes, and even using crystals and gold in the O-CYBORGs.
Gold. Why gold?
You know what? She doesn't really explain that part, which is one of the many things that make you wonder if this is all made up.
Right, right.
But maybe we should move on to some of her more, well, disturbing claims.
Okay, yeah, folks. This is where things get a little dark.
Yeah.
So what did Roberta and this channeled scientist reveal?
So Rebecca, she supposedly said that they sometimes let human clones grow a little bit more so they can harvest bones and other body parts.
Wait, hold up. Are they saying that they are growing humans just to take their parts? That's messed up.
Yeah, it does sound like that. And get this, the O-CYBORGs are programmed to act like they're eating, drinking, even bleeding, but it's all fake.
But like I could be sitting next to one at dinner and they're having a steak, but they're not actually digesting it?
Exactly. And they can even be programmed with like self-preservation instincts and they react to human health care. But here's the thing, Roberta mentions that there's like a 0.5% error rate.
An error rate. What happens when an O-cyborg malfunctions? Do they just like short circuit?
She doesn't really get into specifics about that, but it does make you think, like, if they are supposed to be so human-like, what happens if one, glitches out in a crowded place, or even scarier, like, what if it was someone in a position of power?
Yeah, okay, that's kind of scary. So who's behind all of this? Who's making these O-cyborgs?
Well, Roberta says that it's a bunch of different groups all working together, like governments, organizations, and even really rich people.
Oh, so like a secret group of powerful people doing whatever they want. It's a classic conspiracy theory. But why? What's the point of making these O-cyborgs?
So, according to Roberta, their purpose is to control and surveil the population.
The classic reason for any conspiracy theory. But she doesn't just stop there, right?
Nope. She also says that they might be used for psychic warfare, kidnapping people, and even as like super advanced computers.
Psychic warfare. Now that sounds like something straight out of a movie.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of proof does she even have for all this?
To be honest, she doesn't really give much concrete evidence. It's mostly just her word and what she says she gets through channeling.
Oh, okay. So a lot of speculation and conjecture then. But there's one thing she said that really caught my attention. She said that some O-cyborgs are copies of famous people and that they could replace them after they die.
It is a crazy idea, right? It makes you wonder, like, how many people we see in the public eye could actually be O-cyborgs?
That's a wild thought. So if these O-cyborgs are supposed to be so good at blending in, how could we even tell if someone is an O-cyborg?
Well, Roberta says most people wouldn't be able to. Only people with like strong psychic abilities would be able to sense that they don't have a soul or that they have a different energy.
So unless we have psychic powers, we're out of luck.
Pretty much, yeah. But she does have some thoughts on what the future of O-CYBORGs might look like.
Okay, let's hear it. What does Roberta see happening with these O-CYBORGs in the future?
So she says that in like 100 years, they will be way more common. Some countries will be cool with them and even create laws to protect them, but other countries will try to make them illegal.
So we might see a world where countries are divided over whether or not to accept organic cyborgs.
Exactly. And she thinks that they could become a normal part of life in some countries.
Imagine a world where your doctor, lawyer, even the people we elect to run the country could be O-CYBORGs. That's a pretty intense thought, but it's important to remember that this is just one person's take on all this.
Right, right.
We're not saying you have to believe everything you hear,
Definitely not.
but we do want you to think critically about these ideas. Maybe it will make you curious enough to do your own research.
Yeah, and that's what we want this deep dive to be about. Encouraging you to explore these interesting and sometimes controversial ideas and come to your own conclusions. So it's like she's saying, we're like on the edge of this huge change in technology where it's harder and harder to tell the difference between humans and machines.
Yeah, totally. And the fact that you can program these O-CYBORGs to do specific things, it just adds to that whole feeling.
Right. She says they can be made to do all sorts of stuff, like cook or drive, even be spies, like they're custom made for whatever you need.
I mean, that's kind of cool, but also kind of scary, right?
Yeah.
Like imagine not even knowing if the person making your food is even human.
Yeah, and it goes back to what she said about how they could be used to control people and watch them. Like someone with enough money could have their own O-CYBORGs and use them to get what they want.
It's almost like AI, but even creepier because they look just like us.
Exactly. And remember those crystals we talked about?
Yeah.
She thinks they might be the reason O-CYBORGs could have like psychic powers.
Hold on. So not only can they act like us, but they might have special mental powers too. That's a whole other level of crazy.
It is. She even talks about these psychic wars, which sounds totally wild, but it just shows how complex and maybe dangerous this whole thing could be.
Yeah, it's like something out of a sci-fi movie. But going back to what she said about replacing important people with O-CYBORGs, how would that even work? Would people just accept that their leader is, like, suddenly different?
Honestly, she doesn't really explain the details of how it would happen, but she does say that it's already happening, that even normal people are being cloned.
Okay, so basically any of us could have an O-CYBORG twin out there somewhere.
That's what she's suggesting. And she thinks people in power could use this tech to, like, stay in control even after they die.
Okay, that is just creepy. But let's just say for a minute that it's all true. How much would it even cost to make one of these O-CYBORGs? It can't be cheap.
She says it's millions, maybe billions of dollars.
So basically only the super rich and powerful could afford it.
Seems like it. But she also said that in 2020, there were already like 40,000 O-CYBORGs in the world.
Whoa, 40,000. That's a lot, especially if they're so expensive and supposed to be a secret.
Right. It makes you wonder where they all are and what they're up to. Are they just mixed in with everyone else? Or are they being kept somewhere waiting to be used?
It's like a ticking time bomb, but we have no idea when or where it might go off. So does Roberta say anything about how O-CYBORGs will affect the world in the future?
Yeah, she thinks that in like 100 years, they'll be everywhere. Some countries will be fine with it, even make laws to protect them, but other countries will try to ban them completely.
So, like, countries could be divided not just by politics, but by whether they like O-CYBORGs or not.
Exactly. And she even says that in some countries, O-CYBORGs will be part of like almost every part of life.
Imagine a world where your doctor, your lawyer, even the people running the country are O-CYBORGs. It's an interesting thought, but we got to remember, this is just one person's opinion.
Yeah, for sure. We're not saying you have to believe it.
Definitely not. But it's important to think about it carefully and, maybe even do some research yourself.
Absolutely. We want this deep dive to make you curious and, encourage you to explore these weird and maybe even controversial ideas.
Exactly. Come to your own conclusions.
And as we keep talking about Roberta's claims, there's one thing that's really important to remember. She says some pretty interesting things about what O-CYBORGs can actually do.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, like, she says they can be programmed to be super strong, super fast, and even have, like, better senses than us.
Wow. So like a human with superpowers? That's intense.
Imagine someone with, like, The brain of a human, but with physical abilities that are way beyond anything we can do.
Would we see them as equals then? Or would we be scared of them?
That's a good question. And think about this. Could people use O-CYBORGS to do dangerous jobs like the ones that humans don't want to do?
It makes you wonder if we'd make the same mistakes as in the past, taking advantage of people who are different.
Exactly. We need to be really careful about all this and make sure that if this technology is developed, it's done ethically.
This whole topic just raises more questions than answers, honestly.
I know, it's a lot to think about. But that's what makes this so interesting. It's not just about believing or not believing Roberta. It's about exploring these possibilities and thinking about what they could mean.
And that's what we want you to do, listeners. Don't just take our word for it. Do your own research, think about it, and come to your own conclusions.
Yeah, because when we're talking about the future of technology and humanity, we all need to be part of the conversation. You know, when you really dig into what Roberta's saying, you can't ignore the ethical stuff. Like, what are the consequences of making something that's basically human?
Yeah, it really makes you think about what it means to be human. Like, do these O-CYBORGS have consciousness? Can they feel emotions?
Well, she kind of touches on that. She says that they can be programmed to, like, protect themselves, but they don't have souls like we do.
So is that what makes us human? Our consciousness, our ability to feel things? If these O-CYBORGS don't have that, are they just like really fancy robots?
That's the big question, right? It makes us think about how we would treat them. Would they be like us? Or would we just use them and then throw them away?
It's like that Frankenstein thing. We create something that's like us, then we get scared and want to control it.
And when she talks about some countries being cool with O-CYBORGS and others not, it makes you think about, like, global conflict.
Yeah, you can totally see how countries that use O-CYBORGS would have a big advantage. And that could lead to all sorts of problems, even war.
Exactly. And it's not just about military stuff. It's about power in general. Like, imagine O-CYBORGS running the government or the banks or even the hospitals.
That would completely change everything. How would we even deal with that?
That's the big question, isn't it? Would we accept it or would we fight back?
It's like we're at a crossroads. One way leads to, like, integrating with O-CYBORGS and maybe some cool advancements. The other way leads to conflict, maybe even like our own destruction.
And if Roberta is right, we might have to make that choice pretty soon.
This whole thing has been so interesting, but also kind of scary. It makes you think about what it means to be human and what happens when we keep pushing technology further and further.
It's definitely a reminder to think about the choices we're making now and how they could affect the future.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into organic cyborgs, here's one last thing to think about. What do you think our role will be in a future where we might have to share the world with these bioengineered beings?
Will we be able to, like, live together peacefully, or will we end up creating something that destroys us?
It all comes down to us. So stay curious, keep learning, and never be afraid to question what's possible.
And remember, we're the ones who decide what the future looks like. The choices we make today will shape tomorrow.
Thanks for joining us on this wild ride. Until next time, keep diving deep.